You all join palms. And repeat after me. I take refuge in the Buddha. I take refuge in the Dharma. I take refuge in the Sangha. Keeping the palms joined. Palms down. All right, good evening, everybody. Nice to see you all here. Thanks for showing up. Anyone's favorite movie, Goodfellas? One hand, 1.5 hands. Who here has seen Goodfellas? Let's go there. All right. Really? It's not your favorite? Top 3? Too much violence, too much shooting, too much casino? Okay, we're in the ballpark. But if you all can drop in, anyone here for the first time? So this is what we do here. We go into deep meditative states over mafia movies. This is kind of how the Dharma Bum Temple operates typically. But if you can drop into this deep meditative state and recall the movie Goodfellas, and there's a scene, it's kind of a little movie, but the scene where Ray Liotta is just running around like a crazy person, which one would be into the state of mind that he was in throughout this movie. And there's the helicopters chasing him. Y'all with me now? The helicopter's chasing him, and he's doing a bunch of stuff that I won't really talk about right now. And he's running and delivering and doing stuff and running and delivering and doing stuff. And it's just constant. He's looking up at the helicopters and everything. It's just this crazy, maddening day, right? That's what my life is like every single day. And so minus all the stuff he was doing in that movie, but for me, and I talk about this all the time, and I don't know how many other ways to drive this home to where this often, and I'm not even talking about just me, but often this separation that people have or create in their mind between yourselves and the people who sit up here. We're just you. No different. And it's important that as you go on, now I'm taking this in a totally different direction than I was initially. See, like I said, it's important that in your kind of journey through meditation, Buddhist practice, spirituality, yoga, whatever it is that you're into, don't put your faith or your belief or your hope in the person sitting right here. They are just as unenlightened, ignorant, no offense to all you people who aren't ignorant, but in the Buddhist sense, ignorant. They're just as unenlightened, ignorant, and crazy as you are. And as long as you can recognize that, you can begin to actually learn the teachings of the Buddha that have nothing to do with the person or people who are delivering the message. And that's a really important point that I'm kind of segueing to mention here, because many of you are newer on a spiritual journey, meditation, yoga, Buddhism, whatever it might be. And very often, the individuals out there can look up at the person or people up here and think that, oh, they must have figured something out. Or they have something that I don't have. Or I want what they want. Or what they have. I promise you when I say You do not want my mind. You don't want it. It is a mess. How's your mind? It's a mess. Right? Can we compare a mess of a mind? How bad is yours?
5.
5 out of 10? Like 10 is a mess and you're just a 5?
Yeah.
So that's pretty good, actually. Yeah. I'm talking 9 out of 10. My mind's pretty much like a 9. Yeah. Always. Always. That's what always baffles me and blows my mind about all of this, is that with that mess of a mind, somehow we still have this place. That's the greatest miracle of all, right? But please, and this has actually come up in other classes and other groups, so I'm just sharing it here. Please don't put your faith and hope and dreams, as I said, in the person leading you. They don't want that. Some of them actually do, and those are the most dangerous ones. Figure this shit out on your own. Use the people up here, whoever that may be at whatever place you go to, as you would a stranger on a freeway. That's helping you understand what annoys you and what bothers you and what you can learn about yourself. Because that's, for the most part, what everybody in these positions is doing. Is helping you figure out what your mind is like, not because we understand your mind, but helping you see your mind. And helping you see how you can address your problems. But not meaning that the people up here have figured out their own. You know? So keep that in mind. Right? There's a great movie, Kumare, if you've never seen it. Google it, watch it, and enjoy it. Kumare, Kumare. It's a guy from, out I think in New Jersey. Indian kid doing a PhD program, maybe at Princeton, and doing research on fake gurus. So he decides to grow his beard long. He was raised Hindu, so he had a pretty good understanding of Hindu teachings, Vedic philosophies. He grew his beard long. He put on some robe-looking thing. He grabbed his best 2 girlfriends, got a cool-looking staff, and he moved out to Arizona and pretended to be the great Kumare, the great guru from India. This movie will blow your mind. Yeah, it's phenomenal. Yeah. Have belief in yourself. Believe in yourself. And to the whole Goodfellas rant, that was just my way of saying that when I come up here and I join my palms and I do my offerings, yes, you're all here, but that's a moment for me as a practitioner to just be here. Because for me, since 6 a.m., it's been like Goodfellas all day. So I really appreciate this opportunity to just sit. And I am grateful for this opportunity to just sit more than I think people even begin to comprehend. Right? I'm not here to teach you anything. I'm here to help you sit and help you figure out your own mess. So someday, maybe I can go from a mess of a 9 to your 5. Maybe we should switch seats. Do you want to lead? No? I did this with a 10-year-old once, and the 10-year-old said yes. So then I sat there, and the 10-year-old was here. It was a great class. All right, so with that, we'll start with a meditation practice. A couple things to tell you before we begin. Nothing's going to happen to you. You're not going to float away. You're not going to have any mystical, magical experiences. The mind that races all day long is not going to shut off. Don't judge your practice. Don't ask yourself, is this working or not working? Are you doing it right or wrong? We're just going to sit. We're going to breathe. You'll hear sounds inside, sounds outside. This is life. Life is filled with chaos, and this practice is learning to get quiet and still within all of the chaos. Posture, you want to be comfortable. If you're on a cushion, often it helps slide into the front third. Pushing the stomach forward allows the back to straighten. If you're on a bench or chair, same thing. If comfortable, just trying to sit up straight. Relaxing the shoulders. And to those joining virtually, glad you're here. Thanks for showing up. I will guide us as we begin, and we'll settle into a little bit of silence. Most important, do not expect anything. Do not expect silence. Do Do not expect to think nothing. Do not expect to stop your thoughts. We're just going to sit and breathe. I'll guide us as we begin. And starting with the eyes closed if comfortable, or slightly open. Mouth is open or closed. We'll start with taking 3 deep breaths, slowly. And eventually, settle into a natural rhythm of the breath. Noticing the mind as it wanders, jumping from thought to thought. Start with gently guiding the attention, focus to the stomach or chest. Breathing in, feel them rise. Breathing out, they fall. Simply continue this practice. Observing the sensation of breath. As the mind wanders, lost in thought, recognize it. Release that thought. Return attention, focus to the breath. Breathing in, follow breath in. Breathing out, follow breath out. letting go of expectations, letting go of judgments from the practice, just sitting, breathing. And with the body still, rested, and the speech quiet, aware of all sounds, and the mind learning to settle. Know what it's like to just sit and breathe. Knowing with each breath, there's nothing else to do. Nowhere else to go. And no one else to be. Everything beautiful, exactly as it is. Sitting, breathing. And once again, taking 3 deep breaths slowly. ready, slowly open the eyes. Slowly beginning to move. And most important, with the practice of meditation, is to recognize how you feel now, immediately after. Compare this to how you typically feel throughout your day. Recognize the difference, if there is one. And ask yourselves how you prefer to feel every day for the rest of your life. And realize however you feel now, if it's quiet, calm and still, or a busy mind, racing mind, whatever you're sitting with at this moment, has nothing to do with anything I said. It's nothing to do with how you sit and hold the hands or cross the legs. It's nothing to do with the sounds around us, or anything else for that matter. It's everything to do with your own mind and your own mind's reaction to an external condition. This is what the Buddha called pratitya samutpata, means dependent origination. This is the basis of the Buddha's awakening. The word Buddha simply means awakened. He was a human being, no different than any one of us. He began to understand why he suffered, why he got angry, sad, depressed, stressed, anxious. He began to understand the causal relationship of all phenomena. What that means, very simply, for all of us, regardless of where you come from or what you believe in or where you think you're going, your whole life is filled with things that happen. You react. More stuff happens, more reactions. That's it. That's what we get. This practice is simply learning what it's like to respond to something quietly, peacefully, still. Because for most of us, the way you responded to the last 20 minutes is quite different from how you respond to every other 20-minute period of your day. And so all we're working on is closing the gap to where the way you feel now is closer to how you feel always. Just as driven, motivated, productive, successful, whatever that means to you in your respective lives. But with a mind that's steady, clear, focused, distracted by nothing, disturbed by no one. It's not an easy practice. It's not necessarily fun. It's not an escape, as often people think it is. It is direct perception into the present moment. And very often, as we know, the present moment is filled with chaos, conflict, difficulty, challenges. And so this practice is learning to be with life as it arises. Meditation is free. Buddhist practice is free. It's just sitting, breathing, becoming aware of what you think, what you say, and what you do in every moment. And that's it. Once we stop trying to change, fix, control, manipulate everything and everyone around us, and we work on changing our mind and our reaction to those around us, life gets simpler. But a lot of us spend so much time focused on what everyone else is doing or not doing. Hoping they do this, hoping they do that, wishing they would do this, wishing they would do that. Why did they do this? Why did they do that? We spend so much time, and I'm not saying that you should stop caring about what other people do. That's not the point. But very often, many of the conflicts in our lives arise because we want other people and places and things to be a certain way. And so much of our effort is spent trying to do the one thing that I know no one in this room ever tries to do, which is control people and places and things. This practice has a lot to do with surrendering this absolute illusion of control. and being with life as it is. With all the pain, all the sadness, all the joy, all the happiness, that's life. We get all of that. Sometimes we get some of those more than others. We definitely want more of the happiness and joy and less of the pain and sadness. But the pain and sadness is a big part of our life. If you've made it this far, you're well aware of that. And so be with the pain and sadness just as well as you like to be with the happiness and the joy. To think that the pain and sadness is someday just going to magically disappear and never arise is not wise. It's going to be there. But how we face it, how we approach it, how we work through it is really important. And understanding our role in it as well. So, with that, I'll pause. For me, I always really prefer to respond to questions, meditation, Buddhist practice, anything you're sitting with. For those who are joining virtually, again, welcome. Glad you're here. Feel free as you are to say hello. There's a chat box somewhere on your screen. If you have any questions, you can put them there. I'll do my best to respond. But we'll open up to questions, meditation, Buddhist practice.
I got a question. If your mind is really a 9 out of 10 in craziness, as you said, what keeps you coming back and making you meditate and shit? What motivates you?
Yeah, no, great question. So the question was, just to paraphrase for those virtually maybe didn't hear it, if my mind is a 9 out of 10, on a scale of, the craziness scale that I just invented, what keeps me coming back, right? That's your question? Yeah. Suffering sucks. I've been at this practice every single day for 21 years. And knowing that I can suffer less than I do now is beautiful. Knowing that my mind can be healthier and kinder and gentler than it is now is beautiful. But what truly keeps me coming back is you. If you want to know the honest truth. My practice really began when I stopped thinking about me. I'm alive. I'm going to suffer. I'm going to enjoy my life. I'm going to die. And while I'm here, what's your name?
Evan.
Evan. I'm going to do every single thing in my power. And I don't mean power in my ability to help Evan see how Evan can suffer less. That's what motivates me. That's what inspires me. That's what keeps me coming back. And in that process of helping Evan potentially suffer less, I too suffer less. In Buddhism, we call that the Bodhisattva practice, the Bodhisattva Path. You ever heard that expression? Mm-hmm. So Bodhisattva, Bodhi is enlightened, Sattva is being. And so there are two major schools of Buddhism, without getting into too much of a history lesson here, or really three, but they come out of Theravada or Hinayana and Mahayana. One is Theravada, the old school teachings of the Buddha, when the Buddha lived and died, and really for the first 100, 200 years, a couple hundred years, they have the original, what they call the original teachings of the Buddha, known as the Pali Canon, is where it was all written down. And about 500 years later, you have the development really of Mahayana Buddhism. And Mahayana Buddhism, when it initially left India, went south, Thailand, Laos, Vietnam, Cambodia, again, turn of the century, about 500 years later. Buddha was born 2,500 years ago, it's 500 years before Christ. Around turn of the century, it goes north, China, Japan, Korea, and you have the development of what's called Mahayana Buddhism. And this is where the Bodhisattva practice and Bodhisattva teachings come from, right? The Theravada, the old school teachings of the Buddha, say one must focus on their own enlightenments, their own awakening. Because if one is unenlightened and one is not awake, how can they help anybody else? And I see a tremendous beauty in that teaching as well. This is not like, you don't have like Mahayana and Theravada Buddhists like killing each other over different schools of Buddhism, just different approaches. The Mahayana Buddhism, the Bodhisattva Path says, while you're on your own journey, you can also help others. Now I do agree that, maybe everything I'm saying is actually harming you more than helping you. As an unenlightened, ignorant fool, I don't really know. But I'm going to err on the side that maybe something might help you. So the Bodhisattva Path is that you spend your vow, literally in the Bodhisattva Path, is to liberate all sentient beings from suffering. To continue to be reborn life after life after life until all beings are free from suffering. Sounds like a pretty grand vow, right? So break it down to just simple terms. The Bodhisattva practice as a lay person is to wake up, think of rebirth, if you're not a fan of rebirth, as each day. Each day then becomes each moment. And each moment, your entire existence is to help people suffer less. And in that process, you too suffer less. That's the heart of the Buddhist teachings. Because what gives rise to suffering in Buddhism is a sense of what? Self. Me, I. I want, I need, poor me, I need this isn't working. If I focus on Evan, what am I not focused on? Me. I'm not ignoring me, I'm not starving myself to death, I'm not pretending I'm not here. Eat a little bit, exercise a little bit, take care of yourself. Do a meditation practice so your head is, a 9 out of 10 and not a 10 out of 10. And in that process, get your ass up and go help people. That's truly what motivates me. Yeah.
So I am recognizing that I am having a lot of struggle with my 15-year-old daughter.
Ooh, fun.
Who I love with all my heart, but I'm just wondering, is it greed that's getting in the way, or I have so much judgment that it's silent. It's a silent judgment, but I'm sure she can sense it, right? Silent judgment of what she's not doing, how she's not putting effort into A, B, or C, how she's just the choices that she makes. And so, I don't know, is that greed? I just want her to be something else? Or I don't know, I'm struggling with that as a parent. I want to give her opportunity and guide her and lead her, but at the same time, it's just creating frustration.
So let me paraphrase that as well. What you want is your 15-year-old daughter to do every single thing you want them to do and listen to every single thing you're telling them.
Yes.
Do I really need to respond to that?
Well, maybe some thoughts on how to work on that.
I'll get to the greed part, yeah. So let me ask you this, and I think, based on the way you're saying this, you were a 15-year-old daughter once, right?
Yes.
Did you listen to anything any elder told you? Or let me go ahead.
Well, yes, and I did a lot of things, and I was very hardworking, and I was driven.
So your 15-year-old is just a blob sitting there not doing anything?
There's a little bit of truth in that.
Yeah. Well, good for them. But this question really, I understand, is not about your 15-year-old daughter. This is about you. And your question very specifically is it greedy to want your 15-year-old daughter to do everything you want them to? And how can you suffer less in this process, right?
Yes.
So you look at the fundamental core Buddhist teachings. First thing he said is life is filled with dukkha, suffering, discomfort, angst, dissatisfaction, dis-ease, things that you're just not okay with. You're there. You're suffering because you're not okay with the way your 15-year-old daughter is operating as a 15-year-old daughter right now. So the first noble truth, you are experiencing that discomfort. The second noble truth is the cause of suffering. What is this cause that the Buddha says brings suffering? Greed is the first one, anger, and ignorance, right? We overcome greed with generosity, we overcome anger with compassion, we overcome ignorance with wisdom. So let's look specifically at greed. In this case, greed often is also translated as desire or craving. So the Buddha said very clearly that craving and desire and greed leads to suffering. But there are healthy cravings and healthy desires. The desire to suffer less. If we all, for the most part, unless you got dragged here, if we didn't want to suffer less, if we didn't want to be kinder, gentler, happier people, none of us would be here. So that is a healthy craving, a healthy desire. But you have to bring wisdom into this as well, right? how wise is it to think that your 15-year-old daughter is actually going to do what you want them to? How wise is it to think that? Not that wise. And based on recent experience, probably not that wise at all. So while your desire, your craving, your, for lack of better words, greed, which again, I wouldn't really apply this to greed the way we see greed. Your desire is healthy. Your craving is healthy. You want your daughter to be healthy. You know what your 15-year-old daughter wants? To be a 15-year-old kid. Without the pressure. Without, you even said it, the silence, the pressure. The 15-year-old daughter probably knows that maybe they're disappointing mom. They're letting mom down. They're not doing everything mom wants them to. And they feel that pressure. And they don't know how to emotionally handle that. And so it can be crushing to them. Now, again, I'm not a parent, so I'm very, very clear when I work with parents, talk with parents, that I can never relate to that, to what it's like. But I know what it's like to be a 15-year-old kid that didn't listen to anything their parents said, right? I've also never met a 15-year-old kid that was worse than I was. And as my mother always says, just talk to her, there's hope for all of them out there. Right? If Jeffrey could turn out relatively decent, then there's hope for all of them. But this is really your suffering. And this has to do with you non-attachment in Buddhism, we call it. You setting down this expectation you're having of your kid doing what you want them to. And allowing them, again, within reason, and I'm not suggesting you just let your 15-year-old run wild and crazy, but they're going to do that on your own at this stage, whether you want them to or not, in many ways. It's just how it works. There's a Suzuki Roshi teaching a Zen practice about kind of managing space and time and people. And he talks about, uses the metaphor of like cattle. If you want to kind of corral them, control them, you don't fence them in, and you don't let them roam without a fence. You put up some guards, and you observe them. And you love them, and you care for them, and you let them know that you're there. But this age, they're starting to develop their independence even more. And your frustration is only going to get worse if you don't practice this non-attachment. And non-attachment doesn't mean not love. It actually is love. Non-attachment means you love them endlessly. But you're going to allow them to be who and however they are. And the reality is, she's probably going to turn out quite okay without mother judging and critiquing every little thing she does.
Silently.
Silently, of course.
Yeah.
Yes. So, this is your suffering. Again, I don't want to give parental advice. I wanted to say let her live, but if you don't attach so much to that expectation and outcome, you won't destroy yourself so much. Yeah. Good luck. What else?
I have a question.
Yeah.
Have you ever heard the mantra Sat Nam? It was like, I am truth, or truth is my true identity. You know that one? Or have you heard it?
Mm-mm.
Yeah, I was just wondering if you could
Yeah.
what
The question was the Sat Nam, am I familiar with the mantra of I am truth, the truth is my identity? There's a lot of stuff out there, man. There's thousands of mantras and spiritual practices and, religious folks and, there's a lot out there. I think...
do you have a specific mantra that you kind of gravitate towards? Or?
Don't be an asshole. That's my mantra. It's a very deep, esoteric Buddhist teaching from the 3rd century.
Yeah.
Nagarjuna, the great Buddhist philosopher, he said, and I quote, exactly that. But I mean that very seriously. I'm not like, I've been running a Buddhist temple for 18 years. I don't consider myself a religious, spiritual person. I consider myself somebody who used to be that and tries not to be. That's it. The questions to Dalai Lama about what's the point? What is this all about? And he said, be kind. You know, if you can't help people, at least don't harm them. I don't know what's more enlightening than that, you know. But that also applies to kind of coming back to your quote of "I am truth." That means yourself too. You know, being kind to yourself. That's the hardest thing. That's what gets most people here to a place like this, is because most people show up at places like this have been harder on themselves than anyone. You know? That's also, without getting into too much like therapy type stuff, you know, mom often feels like, well, what am I doing wrong? Apparently I'm a failure. You're just fine. You're just human. Right? So often that love and kindness and compassion that we talk about bringing into the world, even back to the earlier question about the Bodhisattva practice and path to Evan, it has to start with ourselves. Bring kindness, compassion, and love to your heart and your mind, and then you can bring that out. So allow that to kind of, the I am truth to me means, you know, I am not truth. I mean, I grew up lying most of my life. So my truth was I spent most of my time lying. That was my truth. I needed to change. To just say I am truth. No, what am I? What am I is just a billion different stories of conditions and experiences. And I need to wake up to all the crap and stop doing it. You know? Plus Buddhism says there's no I, so that would never work in Buddhism anyways. You know?
It's a Sikh mantra.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, I mean, beautiful.
I was, I thought similar things when I heard it on a yoga video.
Yeah.
Gurmukh yoga video.
Yeah.
I was like, you know, I guess it's supposed to be about God, like the one true God or something. But
Sure.
I always just kind of saw it as like, don't say half truths. Always catch yourself when you're being negative and realize like the dark and the light of the situation.
Yeah. And I'm a big fan, I mean, especially around a place like this, like whatever you know, before there were 14 questions that the Buddha was asked he wouldn't answer. And one of them was about belief in gods and goddesses, right? He was Hindu, so they believed in all, you know, the endless goddesses and gods that were out there. And they asked him, should I believe in them? You know? And he said, I'm just, rough to paraphrase, he said, I'm just a human. I'm not a god. I can't tell you to believe in gods and goddesses or not. If you do, you do. If you don't, you don't. That's up to you. But I'm going to teach you a simple way of life to be kind and gentle to yourself and to the world. That's what he wanted people to practice. You know, so at a place like this, show of hands, how many of you are Buddhist? Look around. You got one hand and another person who's not quite sure yet. You know, so it's not about being Buddhist, it's about being kind. Yeah. And if you have, you know, Christian, Catholic, Muslim, Jewish, pagan, Mormon, or lack thereof, just be kind. You know, yeah. What else?
Does suffering ever, like a previous situation in somebody's life that was suffering, you know, does that ever turn to joy as far as like reflecting on it in a way, or do you just accept that it was suffering and maybe we find joy in the acceptance, but
Yeah, sure. No, great. I think the question around, you know, the suffering, looking back on your life, does suffering ever become joy? And, you know, or maybe the acceptance of the suffering, you know, you become joyful in accepting it. You know, it's very hard to, obviously there's a trillion different scenarios. So I think the second, to me as a practitioner, the second part sounds to me the healthiest. But again, maybe there is some suffering I had in the past where joy came from it when I realized that what I was suffering about actually wasn't even truth. Right? This is really funny that, let's see, okay, I was just seeing how much time we had before I went into this quick story. When I was 17, right, and I got kicked out of high school, that year was like fun and miserable all at the same time. And as an angry, depressed kid, right, it's a rough time. You're away from your friends a lot. And my closest friends, they did this thing where, you know, a group of our friends went and kidnapped, kind of in a healthy, friendly way, a bunch of our other group of friends and took them out for breakfast, right? And they didn't come get me. And I was so depressed. I mean, I was already depressed, and then my friends didn't come get me. So I felt like it was the worst thing in the world, right? So much suffering from that experience. And then, like, no joke, probably like 10 years later, and this is 1991, so then 10 years later, one of my friends had whatever form of camcorder was going on back then, you know, rocking some Sony yellow one, who knows what it was. And we were just hanging out one day, and they pulled up these old videos from high school stuff, and it was that morning that they picked us all up. And they went to my neighbor's house, and they filmed going to my house, knocking on my door, but nobody came to the door. 10 years later, I found out that they actually tried to get me.
Yeah.
And I felt so much joy and relief in that moment. Because all that suffering I experienced at 10 years earlier was for nothing. So there is an example of how suffering could turn into joy. But I do think, and it's funny that that randomly popped into my head, but I do think that in many cases, you know, more realistically, we can look back at moments of suffering and learn from them. I think in situations where the suffering that we caused in other people's lives is things that obviously we don't ever want to look back and find joy in, but we want to look back and learn from them and grow from them and not beat ourselves up for the suffering we caused, but also to not do those things again. And that's where it's not joyful to look back at those moments, but it can be a beautiful opportunity to grow from pain and suffering we've caused in the past. And then I think you even said the word acceptance, you know, for me was a huge part of this practice of having to accept all the things I did wrong, meaning all the people that I harmed. So coming to accept that doesn't mean it was okay, but I had to come to peace with that because otherwise I'd continue to just be miserable. So acceptance is a big piece of moving on and not pretending that it didn't happen and not pretending that we didn't cause pain and suffering, but owning it honestly. My master always said, if you do something, you know, from an apology standpoint, if it's relevant to apologize, then apologize to them. If it was something from 30 years ago and you broke someone's heart, like they're probably not sitting around waiting to hear from you. They're over it. So apologize to somebody else about that moment. Recognize what you did was coming from your own place of ignorance and anger and hatred and whatever else. And then vow to not do it again. You know, you ever done something that really harmed somebody and you're like, I'm never doing that again? And then 2 days later, you're doing the exact same thing? Yeah. So that's what I'm talking about. When we do things that harm people and we vow, we make promises to not do it again, we want to keep those. Yeah. Yeah. What else? Yeah.
As someone at the start of the meditation practice, I was just wondering if there was anything any piece of information or advice that you feel is important that you wish you would know at the start of yours.
Was the first thing you said you're at the start of your meditation practice?
Yeah.
Yes, okay, got it. So your question was, again, for those virtually, you're at the start of your meditation practice. Is there anything that I wish I would have learned at the start of my meditation practice, right? How old are you, like 22?
19.
19, okay. So the funny thing is I was 20 when I first was taught meditation. 29 years ago. And to your question, I think I don't want to say I wish I would have known it then, because my journey and experiences led me to where they led me. And so everyone's going to go, I guess my advice would be, don't wish to know or not know anything about meditation. Just practice. And you'll figure out, like 10 years from now, what's your name?
Fed.
Fed? Finn. 10 years from now, Finn's going to be like, oh, I wish I'd known that 10 years ago. But you have to figure that out on your own. If I had any kind of guidance or advice to somebody just starting, is I would, as is in all the Buddhist teachings, abandon any expectation whatsoever of anything ever happening to you from meditation, other than hopefully becoming kinder and gentler to yourself and to everybody else. But that the thing I say when we go into meditation, nothing's going to happen. You're not going to float away. You're not going to have any mystical, magical experiences. You're not going to figure anything out. You're not going to solve all of life's problems in a few moments of silence. I really mean those things. Like, we're not meditating to be good at meditation. That's really important to understand. Not just because you're a new person, that's for everybody. We're not meditating to be good at it. Because then what are you going to do? Like, call your buddies like, I'm so good at meditation. Like, check me out. I sat for 12 minutes and I'm up to 14 and I didn't even move. But then 3 minutes later, you're on the freeway and somebody cuts you off and you're throwing shit at them. So then what good was your meditation practice? So we don't meditate to be good at meditation. We meditate to bring that quiet, that stillness, right, out there, into our world. Not to separate meditation and your life. So don't ever worry about being good at it. Don't ever worry about doing it wrong. I guess I am answering your question. I got nice. But don't ever worry about doing it wrong. Don't ever worry about doing it for any other reason other than just to sit and breathe. You brush your teeth today? Yesterday? Probably tomorrow? Are you calling your buddies and you're like, I brushed my teeth today? No. It's just something you do every single day. Why?
It's good for me.
It's good for you. Treat meditation the same way. If you do this a couple minutes every day, don't worry about doing it 20 minutes, 40 minutes. You don't need an app. If you have them, that's fine. But just take 2 or 3 minutes and sit quietly and breathe. And know that finding stillness and calm and beauty in your breath, for all of us, but especially for a 20-year-old kid, or 19-year-old kid, growing up right now, man, give yourself a few moments of silence every day. And 10 years from now, it'll all make sense. Yeah. All right, I think I'm going to close on that. We'll join palms. May the benefit of this practice be shared with all beings in all directions. May all beings be at peace. May all be free from suffering. May any merit gained from this practice be transferred to those who need it most. All right, before you all head out, we have a few announcements from our Dharma Bum host, Molly. Thanks, Molly.
Hi, everyone. We opened the Dharma Bum Temple 18 years ago to introduce Buddhist practice to those who show up. Those who lead are not nuns, monks, gurus, masters, or teachers, and are not looking for students. They're simply practitioners sharing their interpretation of the practice. Every night, we have different classes led by different people from various Buddhist traditions. We have a recovery sangha that meets several times a week for anyone with addiction, and our food redistribution program is every Thursday at 4:30. We have classes and programs every day, and everything we offer here is always free. The full schedule is on our website and also posted in the entryway above the shoe rack. We have a lending library, and if you see a book you like, feel free to borrow it, then bring it back whenever you're done with it. Please straighten your seat or cushion before you head out. If a few people could stay to close and latch the windows, that would be helpful. Thank you for being here. We wish you well and hope to see you all.